I personally am a massive fan of story-driven games. It's one of my favourite genres of games to play. So naturally I decided to create a list of 5 emotional moments in video games. The Last of Us has one of the most intense storylines in modern gaming. The entire game is like a roller coaster of feels, so it was pretty hard to settle on one particular moment, but in the end I settled for the so-called giraffe scene. Now I know it's a pretty obvious choice, but there is a good reason for it. The game centres around Ellie, a bitten but immune teenage girl, and Joel, a grumpy middle-aged man who lost his daughter in the first 20 minutes of the game. They journey across America in an attempt to find some doctors who hope to understand Ellie's immunity in an attempt to cure the infection that took over the world. Throughout the game, Joel and Ellie meet many hurdles, such as Ellie saving Joel's life, Joel being impaled in a fight, Ellie getting abducted, and well, we won't go there. But the giraffe scene is where everything changes. All the time that you're playing The Last of Us, the game is building up this image of Ellie as this wisecracking, hard as balls teenager who can handle anything life throws at her. But towards the end of the game, as Joel and Ellie are finally nearing their destination, they encounter a section of the town that has been completely overrun by nature. For one reason or another, there are giraffes in the town. Don't ask, just roll with it. Having grown up during the infection, Ellie has never seen these creatures before, so her and Joel take a detour so that Ellie can see the giraffes up close. It is at this moment that you suddenly realise that Ellie is a girl, a young innocent girl who's been thrown into chaos of surviving in a harsh environment. It's probably not the same hearing this as when you're playing the game, but when you're playing it you honestly forget that Ellie is a young girl. You start to see her as a young woman who can shrug off any danger as if it's nothing. But this scene is the one that makes you realise that was all a front. Next up is a game I played on PS3 and honestly I loved it from the get-go. I Am Alive is set 1 year after America goes through a massive disaster only ever referred to as the event. The game follows an unnamed male protagonist as he attempts to locate his wife and child following the event. Upon returning to his hometown, he discovers his wife and child have left for safety and records an apology to them for not being there to protect his family. As you leave the house, the player spots a small child who the character mistakes as his daughter. She is in fact Mai, and through her the player meets up with other characters attempting to survive after the event. The main person in this group being Henry. This of course leads to the player helping out the survivors with tasks, the most memorable of which being rescuing Mai's mother from a particularly unpleasant gang in a nearby hotel. Mai's mother Linda tells the player a boat is on its way to pick up survivors, but the boat isn't coming into shore because of the amount of dust. Henry tells the player to use fireworks to act as a beacon for a boat. Once the beacon is set off though, hunters attack and the player is forced to defend themselves. Afterwards, Henry is nowhere to be seen. The player learns from an injured survivor that Henry was taken by hunters due to his knowledge of the camps holding survivors. Eventually the boat arrives and Mai and Linda board the boat. The character decides to stay, hoping he can find Henry as well as his wife and child. At this point he starts to record another message to his family and the camera slowly zooms backwards. It reveals a woman watching the recordings on the character's camera, surrounded by all of his equipment. She begins to sob as the video finishes, and with this the game finishes. The player never finds out what happens to the character, his family or Henry. It is all left to your imagination. Next up we have the legend himself, Solid Snake. Solid Snake is the main protagonist in many of the Metal Gear games and was first introduced into our lives back in 1987 in the original Metal Gear. He was the main protagonist of the Metal Gear games until this moment in Metal Gear Solid 4. But first, a little bit of backstory. To understand this event, we have to backtrack to Metal Gear Solid and the Shadow Moses incident. In this incident, Solid Snake is sent to infiltrate a base that has been captured by rogue members of his old unit, Foxhound. The base turns out to be a cover for the development of Metal Gear Rex, a walking tank armed with nuclear weapons that the terrorists are threatening to use if their demands are not met. A lot of very complicated shit happens, but one major relevant thing to this video. Before the incident, Dr. Naomi Hunter injected Snake with a solution to help with the extreme cold he would experience during the mission. It turns out this injection was actually a virus called Foxdie. Snake was merely used as a carrier for the virus, which was designed to kill the president of the company responsible for the development of Metal Gear Rex, as well as members of the rogue faction of Foxhound. You still with me? Okay, cool, here we go. It turns out Dr. Naomi was the sister of Grey Fox, a former comrade of Snake's during an earlier mission. However, Fox's loyalty to Big Boss forced him into combat with Snake. Snake emerged victorious, but Fox didn't die. He went on to become a badass cyborg ninja, albeit one tortured by his past. Because of this, Naomi meddled with the Foxdie virus to mean it would kill Snake as well, albeit at a later date. Skip forward to Metal Gear Solid 4 and Snake is now an old man. He's been told he has less than 6 months to live, thanks to his accelerated aging due to the fact of him being a clone for Big Boss. Honestly, don't ask, it's a Hideo Kojima game, just accept it. Snake is sitting there at Big Boss's grave ready to commit suicide to stop the spread of Foxdie. Suddenly, Big Boss appears and explains to Snake that an injection given to him by a man called Drubin infected Snake with a new strain of Foxdie that was intended for new targets, including Big Boss, but also stopped the old strain of Foxdie from being active, meaning Snake was no longer a walking biological weapon. Shortly after this, Big Boss dies, but not before asking Snake to live the rest of his life, not as a snake, but as a man. Determined to fulfill his promise, Snake decides to stop smoking and leaves to live the rest of his life in peace with his friends. Now next is a game I admit I've never played, but this moment was so powerful that just me watching the game being played here on YouTube left me in shock. Shadow of the Colossus landed on PlayStation 2 back in 2005 and was hailed as a spiritual successor to the cult hit Ico. The game begins with main character Wanda placing a girl named Mono onto an altar. The main bulk of the game sees the player working their way through 16 gigantic bosses known only as Colossi. The game features no towns, no other characters, just Wanda and the Colossi, and his trusty steed, Aggro. Aggro is helpful for not only travelling from one Colossi to the next, but can also be helpful in the battles with the Colossi. After every battle, an entity known as Dormin urges Wanda to complete his task and slay the 16th and final Colossi. On his way to defeat the last giant, the bridge Wanda and Aggro are travelling on begins to collapse with them on it. Aggro throws Wanda to safety before sadly falling to his death, but his sacrifice isn't in vain. Wanda completes his mission and manages to slay the final giant. To me, this moment was very powerful. Even though I was just watching the game being played, I still felt a real sense of isolation. Being alone in that land with no other characters to interact with really hit hard. It's a moment I'm sure that most gamers will remember. For those of you who have played Gears of War 3, that sound most likely triggered an emotional flashback that left you looking like a slithering 3-year-old who's mid-tantrum, but for those of you who have never played Gears 3, you'll probably be a little bit confused. Meet Dom Santiago. Dom met main character Marcus when he was 8 and the two have been friends ever since. The entire premise of Gears of War is based around a day called E-Day, the day Locust rose and attacked the humans. This set in motion years of war trying to defend the human race against the Locust threat. During E-Day, Dom and his wife Maria lost their children to the Locust attack, as well as Maria's parents dying. The loss of life she experienced, coupled with the destruction of her life as she knew it, led to Maria to experience major depression. Dom, being a member of the COG army, spent a lot of time fighting on the front lines after E-Day. One day he comes home to find Maria has left without saying where she's going. Fast forward some time and Dom has found Maria's location thanks to a group of stranded survivors. Dom sets off to find his wife. Him and Marcus infiltrate a camp and eventually find a pod containing Maria. As the pod opens, it becomes clear Maria is in a very bad state. She's badly malnourished and scarred from her torture at the camp. She's unable to remember who Dom is, staring at him emptily. Dom tells Maria how much he loves her and how sorry he is he couldn't rescue her in time, before euthanizing her. Fast forward again to Gears of War 3 and the moment in question. Dom joins Marcus and his gang on a journey to a town called Mercy, where the crew need to gain fuel for a submarine. It's revealed Mercy is Maria's hometown, but Dom assures Marcus he's okay with journeying there. Dom finds Maria's family tomb and after a touching speech, he leaves his COG tags and Maria's necklace on the tombstone. Just after this, Dom and the gang are attacked and heavily outnumbered by Lambent and Locust from every side. Dom tells the rest of his crew to jump off the building they're on as he climbs into a truck. He drives down the tunnel, turning around at the end. As he comes driving down the tunnel, he says his last words. He then drives it at full speed into a tanker, blowing it up and destroying the enemy forces. Being forced to flee, Marcus is forced to leave his friend's body burning in the fire. It's not all doom and gloom. A little fact for you just before we end. Dom actually gives Marcus his knife before he dies. It is the exact same knife that Marcus uses to kill Queen Myra. That wraps up my little list of emotional video game moments. What did you guys think? Did you agree with it? Did you disagree? Let me know in the comments below. If you really enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you really liked the video, make sure to subscribe to Games Bulletin for more videos like this.
Marcus! He's gone!